on your own line first. How do you feel about it right now?
Well, Nick Gates practiced some today. He didn't necessarily go every play all day long with the ones, but he did some practicing, which was encouraging. And David Neville practiced. Dylan Utter has had the dislocated finger, so we kept him out of some stuff here late today. It's pretty sore, but we anticipate him being fine by the time we get to the game. And
Decker is your backup there.
yeah, yeah.
How's he coming along? I know that when you guys wanted to insert somebody at Indiana, you went with Whitaker.
Yeah, I think that what we did this week is Decker took all the snaps with the twos. So, we feel real good about his development and where he'll go, and he's a guy that stepped in there in the spring game when we didn't have anybody and did a pretty nice job. So, we think he's a pretty solid guy.
I know Nick practiced limited today. I mean, what do you think his status for Saturday is?
I think it's hard for me to say. Probably part of it will be how he reacts to the work that he did today, how he feels tomorrow. And, we've had Cole Conrad practicing there a good part of the week and a lot today. So we'll make a good decision about Nick when we really know more tomorrow.
Western Camp?
He will not play, but he's doing well. I don't know if you guys saw him running, but he was running nicely today. And, but I think it's one of those things with that extensive of an injury that we'll just, now that he feels pretty good, let him work to get ready for next Tuesday's practice.
I know you've said before Thursday is kind of your paranoia time of the week. What are like 2 or 3 key items that I guess that your team will need to do well Saturday that you really want to see?
Well, we certainly want to run the ball more consistently and better than we did a week ago. I mean, you can take comparisons to just the most recent outing, and I thought that was, a pretty inconsistent performance by our offense. So the consistency could start with running the ball effectively, consistently. So that will be a big factor. Obviously, doing well in the red zone and scoring points and touchdowns. I think the driving, running, all that stuff will be a part of it, but we got to get some points. And then defensively, they're the number 1 passing team in the league. So we got to be really, really sound. We can't give them big hits. They'll probably complete some passes. We got to be good tacklers, and not give them any runs after the catch. So good tacklers and no deep balls, and then kind of solidify what we do up front against the run. Not let them all of a sudden have a balanced game that looks good that way. They hurt us tremendously with misdirection pass a year ago. So we got to handle the bootleg game well. We'll see more of that for sure until we prove we can do better against it than we did last year.
A couple weeks ago, you guys did really well on first down at Northwestern. Chucked off a lot of big plays. Last 2 weeks, Illinois, Indiana, not quite as good. What do you think the problem's been there, and how do you think you guys can fix it?
Offensively running the ball, yeah, I think that's a matter, I think, of sustaining blocks. We were getting beat the last 2 weeks up front pretty early, and not, the one goal that a lineman has and the guy that he's blocking is to get the ball past your block. And so there's a whole bunch of individuals that have to do that, accomplish that, and we were very inconsistent with it. So, and that sure is nice when you can get 5 yards, 6 yards on first down. It makes a big difference in the rest of that series. So that's kind of what our goal has to be. We feel like, that as part of our identity, that's what we have to do well.
Do you think that anything Tommy or the backs can do, or do you really think a lot of that's just on the line?
Well, I think that the backs have to look at it, very analytically and see what might be there and the cuts they can make. But that running game is truly a group effort. It has to be done well throughout the group, whether it's the fullback also involved or the tight end. When that thing's going well, then that thing looks like a real unit playing together. We run a lot of zone runs, and so you can just see that take shape, and so we just got to be more consistent throughout our assignments with that whole group.
Coach, will Divino Zigbo play a bigger role this week?
I don't know yet. He's kind of been back and forth in practice this week, and stepped out of practice yesterday, practiced the whole day today. we'll see how that goes tomorrow, and then make a decision about him too.
I know you want to see that punt unit improve. How's young Caleb as a young guy kind of handled, going through this season and trying to get better?
Well, the whole punt team has to get better. We were in that situation where we didn't look good in protection, didn't look good in coverage. So what good is there? And it's that whole thing that I think Caleb actually poise-wise has been fine. I think that we have to do a great job around him. And now, a lot of returns are the responsibility of the whole group, but the punter has to do a nice job. It's about hang time and direction, and so he's got to do his part, and he's been doing okay when given the opportunity. And then the rest of the group, has to start with the snap and protection, and then we've got to cover better. I mean, we broke all the rules of coverage last week in that long return, so the group has a lot of improving to do.
I know you guys got 2 huge games after this one. How do you feel like your team kind of handled focusing just on Purdue this week and not looking ahead to the 2 big ones?
I think it's a pretty mature group, Sam. I'm not really worried about that. I didn't see any big difference in the approach. I think we're pretty level-headed. I think there's good leadership that way. I would hope and I think that this group understands that all of our games have been hard. I mean, we have had to play well into the second half, some of them well into the end of the game, fourth quarter, to win the games. So, I cannot believe that we would assume that it would be any easier than that. And I have pretty good faith that this team will handle that part of it.
Coach said last week that Tommy was working through some stuff before the Indiana game. How's he able to adjust his game when he's maybe not 100%?
I think that Tommy is a competitor, and I don't know that he thinks that way. I think he just kind of plays through his assignments, his reads, his choices that he has to make. And I think that when he gets out there and reacts, if he has to run the ball or whatever he's going to do, he can handle it. If he couldn't physically, then we wouldn't have him in there. So, he is certainly at a point where, like a lot of football players right now, you're not at 100% physically. Something's always probably bothering you a little bit, but I think Tommy goes and plays, competes.
All right.
Thank you all.